So welcome everyone to this EU Clusters talk on the European Year of Skills. We're looking for talent for the twin transition, the digital and green transitions. And that's what we're talking about right now. Hello, I'm Chris Burns, and I'm talking to you from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, from Radio Studio 4. And from here, I'm connected with all kinds of people across Europe, including yourselves. We're talking about this skills gap. How are we going to close this skills gap? There are mismatches, there are shortages, and that's why the European Commission has launched this Pact of Skills to step up investment in upskilling and reskilling. A figure out there that I saw was interesting. 2021 Digital Economy and Society Index, the DESI Index, shows that 44% of people in the EU and a third of Europe's workforce lack basic digital skills, at least that back in 2021. And by 2030, the Commission wants to reach 80% of EU adults with at least basic digital skills and 20 million ICT specialists. How do we do that? We're going to be talking to the Commission. Our agenda shows we're going to be talking, of course, the news on this. Also, we'll get from the Commission on the EU Pact for Skills, on Erasmus, and then we're going to talk about with a panel discussion with a cluster of people across Europe on how this is working and how this will work on the ground on building skills. Tech tips, keep in mind the questions via the Q&A button at the bottom there that you can see on your screen. You can also hit that button to raise your hand. You can actually pose your own question by yourself if you want. Just hit that button to raise your hand. And also there's a lot of activity. There's always a lot of activity in that chat. And so keep an eye on the chat. We put a lot of extra information in there for you to look at, and lots of people get involved there. And keep in mind, hashtag EU Clusters Talks, hashtag EU Clusters Talks for anything you hear that's great to cast wider on the social networks. And this will be recorded for playback. So let's get started with news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, including, we're talking about SMEs and lots of other things. Nina Hauptmann, team member of the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, fill us in on all the news.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, and good morning to everybody. Looking forward to this cluster talk with you this morning. We would like to announce that their upcoming Clusters Meet Regions event that, of course, might be of interest to you. We have a good lineup actually this week that's happening Clusters Meet Regions in Skåne in Sweden tomorrow and the day after. And you can also save the dates for Burgas in Bulgaria on the 13th of September, Prague in the Czech Republic on the 23rd of October, and Düsseldorf, Germany on the 8th of November. So these events bring together clusters and policymakers from different levels to talk about how to use clusters to strengthen the industry ecosystems, how to reach national and regional economic development, and of course to bring about the twin transition. And I believe skills is always also a topic at these Clusters Meet Regions, so it fits also very well with our cluster talk this morning. So keep a lookout of the upcoming events where you might want to join. You can also already save the date for an outgoing matchmaking event to Singapore, which will happen on the 30th of October. The registration will open shortly for this. You will visit the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology, as well as the Agri-Food Tech Expo. And of course, since it's a matchmaking event, you will have matchmaking sessions between cluster organizations and SMEs coming from Europe and with the partners in Singapore. There's a call for expression of interest that is open to join the Industry 5.0 community of practice. This community of practice will bring together stakeholders from the European innovation ecosystem to share good practices and actions to implement the key pillars of Industry 4.0, which is human centricity, sustainability, and resilience. And it's an opportunity to share ideas for the synergies and to receive support to transform traditional business models. This call for expression of interest is open until the end of July. So please click on the link in the chat to get more information and to see this call for expression of interest and how you can do that. If you're interested in energy sufficient solutions provided by SMEs, you can listen to a pitch session that will happen in the European Sustainable Energy Week. There are SMEs that will present technical and service solutions that are ready for market, available on the market to be implemented in the energy intensive industries or by cities and municipalities to save energy and to make use of renewable energy sources. This is organized by the Enterprise Europe Network, and it will happen on the 22nd of June at 9:30. So if you would like to listen in and come, please register via the website of the European Sustainable Energy Week. I have the link in the chat. There's an ongoing consultation on a Commission initiative, enhancing the European administrative space. And with this initiative, the Commission is exploring to see how to equip public administrations with tools and approaches to upskill and reskill their workforce, facilitate the exchange between civil servants, and to foster administrative cooperation, and of course to implement existing legislation linked to the digital decade and the implementation of AI. There's a consultation meeting on the 20th of June at 11 o'clock in a hybrid form. So if you're in Brussels, you can attend, or you can also join online. You can register until the day after tomorrow if you're interested in joining this consultation. And last but not least, a last remark on the trend universe. This is something that we are going to talk about in the EU Clusters talk next week. So you can already prepare for that and have a look around at the trend universe, which is a strategic foresight instrument offered by the ECCP. And it helps cluster organizations to better understand future trends, kind of impact this has on the organization, and to explore trends in the 14 industrial ecosystems. So have a look at that and then connect next week to pose your questions. And with that, back to you, Chris.
Great, Nina. Thank you so much. A lot of activities all the way to Singapore, from here to Singapore. That's very interesting. Lots of things to get involved in. Let's move quickly now to what this Pact for Skills is all about. We're going to talk about skills for the green and digital transition with Daniela Santopolo, Policy Officer at the Joint Research Center. That's the kind of like the think tank for the European Commission. And so let's hear from you, Daniela, please.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks, Nina. Happy to be here today at the Cluster Talks. Just a small detail. I'm actually from DG Grow in the European Commission. So I'm going to present a bit the European skills policy. I'm a policy officer for skills in the unit that deals with skills and professions and DG Grow. So I will start by speaking about the main initiative of interest today, that is the EU Pact for Skills. So the Pact is an initiative that was launched in 2020, and it is a way to answer a general need throughout the single market, referring to skills gaps. I would like just to report some major data we have gathered in the past. About 70% of enterprises in Europe report that a lack of skills is an obstacle to investment. Another important factor is that for SMEs, 1 out of 4 report major difficulties in finding staff with the right skills. Referring specifically to the green transition, it is expected to have an impact on about 40% of all jobs. This will definitely amplify and make the demand for new skills bigger at all levels. So in Europe, we need a big effort for up and reskilling of our workforce. Speaking of green jobs, and speaking of the manufacturing side, in order to boost the net zero technologies, we will need by 2030 180,000 skilled workers in the fuel cell. For hydrogen, about 66,000 for the photovoltaic solar, and 800,000 for the battery. Next, please. So this is a bit the context in which we have taken action from the European Commission side to launch in November 2020 the EU Pact for Skills. It is in the framework of the European Pillar of Social Rights, and it's the first flagship initiative under what we call the EU Skills Agenda, 12 action to answer a broad range of skills needs in the European Union. The idea is to mobilize with the Pact for Skills private and public stakeholders to take concrete actions for the up and reskilling of the European workforce. How does it work? Joining the Pact for Skills means that players in the industrial ecosystems of the European Union, all actors, including public authorities, including industry, including SMEs, social partners, education and training providers, etc., pool forces to make concrete investments and action in up and reskilling opportunities for the employees in their value chain. They can partner up per ecosystem, they can partner up at regional level and formulate individual commitments and set up targets of how many workers they want to up and reskill within a certain period, for example, or which specific skills they need to tackle in their sector, etc. The Pact is not an initiative that starts from scratch. We know very well that this thematic has been addressed by other projects of the European Commission and also at national level in the past, and it builds on the results of such projects. I'm thinking about the blueprint projects for skills. They were Erasmus Plus projects analyzing skills needs, but also the alliances for apprenticeships and social partners agreements on up and reskilling at national level. The next. What is this initiative that started in 2020 already bringing about in terms of results? Well, pretty successful, because I can already speak of 18 large-scale skills partnerships covering all 14 industrial ecosystems in the European Union, including in very strategic areas such as, for example, energy-intensive industries, renewable energy, both onshore and offshore, and others that are key to answer the needs of the digital and green transition. Together, they committed to provide up and reskilling opportunities in the coming years for millions of workers. Up to now, we have over 1,500 signatories, and over a third already formulated concrete commitments in terms of up and reskilling. Who is in the Pact? I was mentioning very differentiated types of stakeholders, large companies, SMEs, local training providers, chambers of commerce, social partners, regional authorities, sectoral clusters, and networks and associations at European level of different types. The partnerships allow to pool expertise and resources to make efforts for the up and reskilling actions, and they can really provide a strong impact in the value chain for effective actions focused on some key priorities that are of interest for the sector and reduce costs and deliver impactful results. Next, please. So I would like to take the opportunity of being here today to encourage all of you to join the EU Pact for Skills that supports public and private organizations with upskilling and reskilling of the workers so that they can meet the needs of the green and digital transitions and be successful in the twin transitions. What is there from the European Union? Well, the support is divided into three basic strands of support. Networking hub, so the support services that are provided by the Commission for the Pact, they support in finding partners, in linking with existing EU tools, in promoting the activities of the Pact members. Knowledge hub, so the organization of webinars, seminars, peer learning activities, sharing of information, updates and new policies. And guidance and resources hub, so access to information on what is the relevant EU funding to fund skills actions. There's a large variety of funds that are available for this purpose and that can be used by member states. Guidance to identify financial possibilities, facilitating exchange between the Pact and national and regional authorities. Next, please. This is the link to the EU Pact for Skills official website when you could get additional information, and this is the email that you can contact in order to get information about the Pact and on the procedures how to join. Next, please. I would like also now to go from the Pact for Skills to an initiative that is specifically dedicated to the green transition. The Net Zero Industry Act is a proposal for a regulation that was presented by the Commission and adopted on the 16th of March this year, and is now in negotiation with the co-legislators. This initiative contains some elements that I would like to describe here today for your information in order to get an idea of what is happening and what are the actions in terms of skills that we are taking in order to realize the green transition. So the transition to climate neutrality needs the development of some specific net zero technology sectors. The Net Zero Industry Act, proposal for a regulation adopted on the 16th of March by the Commission, establishes the framework conditions for scaling up manufacturing capacities of net zero technologies in the European Union. When we come to skills, this scaling up will need a massive reskilling and upskilling of the workforce. And the Commission will consider on how to combine a skills-first approach, so recognizing the actual skills of the worker with existing approaches based on qualifications. Why is it important? If we do not address the skills gaps, we will not be able to scale up the net zero technologies, and we will not meet the EU climate change targets. I was describing earlier the skills needs for the green transition, and I was mentioning these huge numbers. So in the manufacturing of some key net zero technologies that show that we need to bring together stakeholders and build upon existing structures such as the EU Pact for Skills, the European Year of Skills, you will hear about in a minute, and the existing funds, structural funds dedicated to fund, among others, also skills actions, but also research done on skills needs through different projects. Next, please. So the Net Zero Industry Act contains a chapter on enhancing skills for the quality job creation. It is chapter 5, and in the next slides, I will describe what is the core of the proposal. So Article 23 of the proposal suggests the launch of net zero industry academies. What does it mean? They are not brick and mortar academies. We don't establish any educational institution here, but the Commission is proposing to build a kind of a collaboration model with three main functionalities. The academies co-design together with industry and education and training providers in the member states, learning content dedicated to some key net zero technology sectors. This learning content developed centrally will be offered to interested education and training providers in the member states to support and complement their provision of education and training where desired. In parallel, the academies will develop learning credentials to facilitate the recognition of the skills acquired through the courses developed by the academies and enhance and allow the mobility of the workforce in these sectors. There is an already existing example in the European Union, which is the European Batteries Academy, launched in 2022, that is already operating and that works around this model for the battery sector. The proposal suggests as first actions, but is not limited to the creation of these academies for the solar, hydrogen and raw materials sector. As I mentioned, the battery is already existing, built around developing learning programs, enabling the use of these learning programs as an offer by training providers and education providers in the member states, and developing credentials to certify these trainings and facilitate mobility of the labor force. Next. On regulated professions and recognition of professional qualifications, Article 24 suggests to foster the recognition of professional qualifications and mobility of skilled workers. So the learning programs developed by the academies will concern skills needs that sometimes will touch on regulated professional activities. In this case, the proposal obviously does not impact the member states' competence to regulate professions on their territory in line with European Union law, but where a member state concludes that an academy learning program is equivalent to a qualification required to access a regulated professional activity, then the recognition of this credential is automatic. Next, please. The net zero industry platform and the skills. So what happens in terms of governance? Well, the Net Zero Industry Act itself establishes a net zero industry platform. Is a platform composed of member states and the Commission, chaired by a representative of the Commission. Each member state appoints a high-level representative, and the platform can invite ad hoc representatives of the European Parliament to observe, or experts and other third parties to provide contributions to the meetings. It may establish subgroups, and we propose to establish a subgroup on skills specifically. Next, please. With some specific tasks, namely assisting the Commission in assessing and monitoring skills needs with the help of the member states. So it's a forum to exchange and cooperate on skill needs. Monitor the work of the proposed academies and foster synergies and collaboration with education and training providers in the member states. So ensure that the academies' actions reflect education and vocational training policies of the member states and skills needs expressed by the member states, and ensure links between academies and education and training providers in the member states. Next, please. Also assist the mobilization of stakeholders for the rollout of these learning programs. The impact of this concept of the academies depends on the participation of education and training providers in member states, and depends on member states' willingness to provide political support and raise awareness. Also assist the uptake and recognition of learning credentials. So basically, the acceptance of the learning credentials developed by the academies, promoting adequate working conditions and labor market activation, and facilitating cooperation and exchange of best practices. Next. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I thank Chris, I thank Nina for the invitation to attend, and of course, I'm available to be contacted for more questions related to the Pact for Skills and also the Net Zero Industry Act. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chris.
Great. Grazie molto, Daniela Santopolo, Policy Officer at DG GROW, European Commission. Sorry, I misidentified you at the very beginning. A lot of information to think about, and we want to continue with that in the panel discussion, but let's get a little bit more on Erasmus Plus that you mentioned, the traineeship, the clusters as hosts. Talk to Vito Borelli, who is team leader at DG EAC, that's Education and Culture at the European Commission. Let's hear from you, Vito.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting us to this very interesting cluster meeting. I think it is an opportunity really to share information on an important initiative of the Erasmus Plus program, which is largely known for its high education mobility of students for study purposes, but probably one of the activities, one of the actions that is not so much known is the traineeship action. If I may ask to pass to the next slide, please, I will give you just some information about the opportunities offered under the Erasmus Plus projects for traineeships for students. In fact, we offer this type of traineeships and internships for students at short cycle level, both for study, but also at bachelor, master, and doctoral level. And we also give the possibility for young graduates to be trained in a company between 2 and 12 months. This is the typical duration of a traineeship. Shorter stays are, however, also possible, in particular when they are accompanied by a blended part of the virtual cooperation. In fact, it started probably with the pandemic, but I mean, it has become now an integral part of the program to have also blended exchanges, also to offer the possibility to those who do not really have the chance to move and to travel easily due to their also working commitments, to be able to benefit from the possibilities offered by the program. Now, traineeships can be hosted, and this is the main message also for our audience today, can be hosted by any workplace, such as companies, SMEs, and startups. More than 100,000 grants are funded every year by the Erasmus Plus program to undertake traineeships abroad and contribute also to the travel and subsistence costs. So we have certainly an important number, but our aim is to increase this number. So our invitation is, what are you waiting for? I mean, all companies, all enterprises that are happy to receive students under the Erasmus Plus scheme are invited to visit the EU co-funded site erasmusintern.org that can help you match your traineeship offer with the prospective Erasmus Plus trainees. This is a platform that is managed by the Erasmus Student Network, which is, of course, an association that we strongly support because they allow us to keep a constant contact with the current Erasmus students and also alumni, and also allows them to exchange information. But this specific site is just thought for you, for companies, for industries to be aware of what is the offer from the student side and to publicize your offer to students. You can find more information about this platform on the website on the hyperlink that we have identified in the slide, Traineeship Abroad for Students Erasmus Plus. Just another slide, the next one is mainly aimed to show you what are, in our view, the benefits for companies and for SMEs, for startups, having a trainee from abroad. We think that a trainee is a really valuable resource that can provide new international perspectives, innovative ideas, and active support to the company. We think, and of course, we experiment it on a daily basis, receiving our trainees in the framework of the Blue Book initiative in the European Commission. I think that a lot of new and fresh ideas are brought by these young people. And in that sense, I think it's two-way. It's a win-win solution because it helps them, of course, to progress, to evolve in their career, but also it helps us a lot. A trainee brings enthusiasm and increased competitiveness and innovation capacity. We also think that trainees' insight into the home culture of the company can open doors to new market opportunities and expand business. Enhanced competencies at the company, SMEs, startups, in terms of other languages and also in terms of up-to-date IT skills. So this is really a very strong invitation from the Erasmus Plus program side to consider this opportunity, to be aware that this exists, and we are, of course, always available to help you identify the right trajectory to find your best trainees, and the other way around, we will be helping students to get in touch with you. So thank you very much for your attention and for your interest.
Thank you very much, Vito. Yeah, we've seen more than 1 million Erasmus babies. Let's see millions of Erasmus trainees and upskilled people creating millions of SMEs and startups. We want to see that. And let's move on now to Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs with Katerina Nedlova, team leader at DG Grow, European Commission. Katerina, just keep in mind that we're several minutes behind. If you could try to make it as quickly as you can so we can move on to the panel debate. Katerina, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for the invitation. I'll try my best. So we have heard the word skills, we have heard the traineeship, we have heard other things. I just would like to add entrepreneurship. And that is where our scheme, Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, fits in. It is not a part of the Erasmus Plus, which was just mentioned by Vito, but this has been implemented by DG Grow, and it's not an internship scheme, but it's rather on-the-job training. Next slide, please. It's, however, based on the same principle as Erasmus Plus and Erasmus Concept. It is about exchanging skills and knowledge necessary to start and grow a small and medium-sized business in Europe. We offer to new entrepreneurs possibility to stay abroad for 1 to 6 months, collaborating, working together with an experienced entrepreneur. We partly co-finance the new entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. Next. Let me just talk a bit more about the two groups that are involved here in the exchange. New entrepreneurs, for us, new entrepreneur is somebody who either has a firm idea to start a business or somebody who just started a business, so less than 3 years ago. For host entrepreneurs, on the other hand side, it's successful, experienced entrepreneur, owner of a company for more than 3 years. Next slide, please. We also have 2 other bodies involved. They are helping us to promote the program and to actually help the people to participate. It's intermediary organization, currently over 160 in 35 countries. And also we have support office where everybody can send their questions. So it's basically a help desk to all. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of the program? While it may be a bit easier to understand what is there for the new entrepreneurs, they get on-the-job training, they develop their entrepreneurial skills, they gain business knowledge, and we, of course, co-finance them. You may be asking what is actually there for the host entrepreneurs, for the established companies. And this is what we get as a feedback from them. After 10 years running a business, they never have time to stop and think about how they can do things differently. So here they have young or new entrepreneur with fresh perspective, idea, which tells them, well, listen, I think maybe this can be done a bit differently. So this is what they value very much. Of course, they value also the possibility to learn about foreign markets. And last but not least, they are finding opportunities and potential business partners. Next slide. Of course, we have success stories. You can have a look at our web pages. What comes to my mind, which would be relevant, maybe when Daniela spoke about the Zero Net Act, last story of our new entrepreneur, Dimitri, who actually had a dream and he wanted to do something for green transition, green innovation. His idea was to design reflective panels that can be put on houses and this way bring light and heat to homes. He also said that he actually wants to start this business first with care homes, where he thinks it can have the biggest impact. For that, he went actually to Lithuania, to a company that was able to help him to learn how project architectural management works, how he can start planning, and last but not least, how to manage a group of collaborators of, let's say, up to 50 people. So this is what he had done. He successfully started a company and is active in the field. Next slide, please. How does it work in practice? On the next slide, you will see it's very simple, just 5 steps. Everything is digitalized, online application matching, contracting, just to stay abroad is real. And then the feedback and payment is also, of course, electronically done. On the next slide, you'll see just overview what we need for an application. And what is important to mention is that there are absolutely no deadlines to apply. So anybody, either host or new entrepreneur, can apply anytime. There are no sector limitations. We have exchanges in the field of starting a business in the bakery sector. You have heard the story of Dimitri in the green innovation. And last but not least, there are also no age limits. Anybody above 18 can participate in the program. We have our typical customer as a new entrepreneur has 28. He already has his first job and decided to try to do something else. As far as hosts, our usual hosts have around 41 and are running a business for around 7 to 10 years. Next slide. Just to mention a few key facts and achievements of the program, we will be 15 next year. We have received over 46,000 applications, and important, we have managed to match over 11,000 new entrepreneurs, which means involving over 22,000 entrepreneurs all over Europe. We can go to the next slide, which will actually lead us to where to find more information about the program on our website, but of course on our social media. With this, I hand over to Chris. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm of course available for any questions.
Great, Katarina, thank you so much. Let's move on to the panel debate, Pact for Skills, and how that is working on the ground, the different initiatives on the ground by the different cluster groups. Carolina Garces, project manager, Mobile Heights, Sweden. You're a nonprofit promoting digital innovation, focus on digital health, society, manufacturing, defining all kinds of skill needs. How is that working for you? Can you give us an example of how you're doing that? I see you've trained nearly 2,000 people in 3 years. That's pretty good. Very good.
Sorry, thank you so much for the invitation. I would say that I represent the IT cluster in the south of Sweden. I would say that we are pretty active because Sweden is a tech country. And we have identified that in the next 4 years, we will need around 70,000 people with the skills within the technology. And that's why we need to be active, right? So we have developed several projects. One of those is it's called Co-Skill, where we as a clusters help companies, small and medium companies, to identify the needs required and how is the gap, what is the gap when it comes to skills. But what was interesting of this project is that we analyzed that from the business perspective and from the digital transformation strategy of each company. Then what we did was to actually build the curriculums together with the universities and other vocational centers and even private education companies and consultancy. We build the curriculums together, and then we offer a 360 solution for each company. So it was tailor-made education that we offer for free to around 2,000 people and around 200 companies. So yeah,
Okay,
we
so
are very happy about that.
Can you give us one specific example, one specific company, one kind of skill?
Yeah, like for example, in the tech, that is the area that I lead, we have created 8 educations. It was artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data management. What it was interesting, if you want a specific example, was that this was in the context of the starting of the COVID. So we thought that it will be, we didn't know how the impact would be, the economic impact.
Right.
At the end, we thought that we will have a lot of digital companies participating, but the digital companies, they were affected by COVID, but positively. They had to act very fast. They had more clients, so they didn't have the time to be so much in the educations, though they had the deep knowledge to actually train the manufacturing industry, because they were not used to have online meetings, for example. So what happened at the end of the project is that the deep tech industry in the south of Sweden educated the manufacturing industry during the COVID. So
Really?
it was a very interesting example as a result.
Yeah, very good. Interesting. Let me come back to you. Delphine Descornes-Jany, president of Cluster Nogent Tech.
Yeah.
Delphine, I see you opened up an école de production, that's a school of production last year, vocational training based on real situations, practical learning. Tell us about it.
Yes, so I'm president of a cluster that have a 20 years old cluster, 55 companies, mainly in aerospace, automotive, medical device manufacturing. At these companies, there is a real employment issue, because the unemployment rate is very, very low, and there are a few young people that want to train in these skills, machining, welding, and this kind of skills. So in 2021, we heard that there is a new kind of training in France called école de production. And that was very interesting. And Cluster Nogent Tech decided to open this type of school on our county. So it's a really specific type of private school. It's private school, but it's free of charge for young people. It's only for young people from 15 years to 17 years with no selection criteria. They only have to be very, very motivated to train, and mainly the difference is that they train with real parts that are subcontracted by the companies. So they acquire the knowledge of the activity, if it's automotive or if it's aerospace. So it's really important, because they acquire during the training the job experience, work experience.
Right, and that is what kinds of skills you're talking about? Welding, what, electronics, things like that?
We open the school with only machining, so milling, turning. And in 2024, we will add a new activities with welding. Okay.
All right. Very good. And what's your reaction to this Pact for Skills that we heard for these last 3 presentations, especially the first one, of course? How can that help you
really,
do what you're doing on the ground?
it's very, very interesting, but we speak many about training of high training. We speak about engineer, technician, engineer, but the école de production only train manufacturing operator, because we cannot produce parts in Europe if we don't have also manufacturing operators. So
Yeah.
we need operators.
Right. It's all kinds of skills that are needed there. Okay, thank you. Let's come back to you. Aileen McCallum, director of the Bantani Education Project on, let's see, in Belgium, entrepreneurial learning, organizing, reskilling, upskilling. Tell us how that's working on the ground. What's a specific project that you've done in terms of upskilling, reskilling?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Yes, I'm really very much working in the area of entrepreneurship skills and mindset. And this is now what we see as enabling skills, the underpinning skills to drive this green and digital transition. And this contributes very much across different sectors. So I'm within Bantani Education, we work across the world on different entrepreneurial learning initiatives, different actions, but we've actually created with many partners the EntreComp community. And this is about developing synergies amongst actors from different sectors, different lifelong learning areas who are interested in these skills, these ability to have vision, have ideas, look at the resources you need to put those ideas into action and to be entrepreneurial in life, community, work, and obviously startup. I think what really is quite critical here is the diversity of partner that we're seeing interested in these skills, interested in incorporating this into their sector approach often. I mean, we've got 1,200 members, 40% come from enterprise employability policy. And they're really looking at these as these underpinning skills. I think that—
Give us an example, a specific example.
Yeah.
What the skills, entrepreneurial skills, that's quite a big gamut.
It is a big, it's that being entrepreneurial, the creativity, the initiative, the planning and management, the really putting it, the financial literacy is obviously in there too. But what we find is that new collaborations are coming out. And one I think I'd like to highlight is a project called EntreComp for Transition, which again is looking at it's developing learning paths, which are called the Green Transition Facilitator. And that's about helping vocational education institutions. They're putting them into vet institutions to actually then say, this is a way that you can introduce skills for green transition, which incorporate entrepreneurial, digital, and that green awareness, green ability to integrate green technologies into vet programs of lots of different types. And this is something that you look at the partners involved: chambers of commerce, universities, vet institution, enterprises, and organizations that are interested in the skills as well. And you see that really importance of working together, which I think is why the cluster collaborations are so important in that, and the Pact for Skills, because you get that chance to work together, build these collaborations.
Yeah, absolutely. Jakub, let me move to you. And I also want to invite all of you watching, quite a few of you there, to put your questions into the Q&A part, and also any comments into the chat. And if you want to actually pose the question yourself, then click that button at the bottom to raise your hand. We'll let you in to pose the question. Jakub Grodeski, Policy and Project Manager at EURASH, that's the European Association for Institutions in Higher Education in Brussels, more than 600 professional and higher education institutions. You recently attended a conference on closing the skills gap in deep tech. Can you tell us about what the needs are there? What did you see over there when you attended that conference?
Have I attended that conference?
Well, I thought I saw that. I saw it online. I don't know. Did you skip it?
Yeah. Chris, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, just starting from the scratch, I think it's already existing of us here, being invited here is already some sort of interconnection between the sectors, because indeed we are representing the policy on education, and we are always speaking about, like, where's the policy on education, where's our institution standing, what is the need of the
and how do we
industry,
connect
and so on.
how do we connect higher education
Exactly.
with
So
the needs on the ground by SMEs and startups, right? How do you do that? And
exactly. So
kind of
the
a bridge
potential is there, right? So potential is there. We have more than 5,000 institutions across Europe. And since the discourse on the dialogue started, it kicks off, is being put on the spotlight by the European Commission, but also by the countries because of the nature of the current job market, current crisis, let's say, situation. The universities also, let's say, acknowledge this need. So it's not that that discourse is being set and the universities are not there. So of course, there is many activities that universities are coming up with. We have to acknowledge this potential, and also policy agenda is trying to support that, because we are not only talking about the individual actions, because the individual actions from the universities are matching the needs of the region, of the sector, of the different countries that we are talking about. But also the policy is coming behind it. So when we are talking about the desilosing education and the programs, we are talking about the novelties in the education agenda, such as micro-credentials, which is probably the term that you've heard a lot over the last years. But the universities are now trying to desilos these programs that they are offering full-time over the bachelor, master, and how to actually offer those skills in a smaller learning component. So our mission...
Can you give us a specific example of that?
Yeah, of course. Getting through this, and by the way, European Alliance is the initiative that is kind of striving to offer that more because of the national barriers. But let's say we are talking here about the project that has been developed across 4 countries: the Portugal, Spain, Poland, and Finland, which was called Pact Alliance, let's say focusing on the plastic packaging, right? Speaking about the cluster industry reality. And their struggle was, for the biggest struggle that they had was to actually, make the degree, make the qualification official, because the different countries didn't manage to acknowledge this project and course. So, for example, the students were rather hesitant to apply because the promise of receiving something validated as a credential wasn't fulfilled. But they came up with the
not just their own
exactly.
country.
So the different countries actually issued the separate credentials, and the mission is right now in Europe to continue with the integration of the Bologna process and to kind of making this smaller components issue. Another example could be, for example, Amsterdam University of Applied Science. I recently learned that they found that within the Applied Science University, the digital school, so the school for reskilling, upskilling citizens when it comes to digital skills, it's called Digital Society, in Amsterdam. They, I think, retrained already 1,100 students, as far as I heard last time, and they're like ready to incorporate the students willing to get these digital skills into the UAS. Outside even from the students that are enrolled. So it's also reaching out to the non-traditional learners, let's say, to allow them to reskill and come back to the universities, because that's a foreseen future in Europe, to come back to the universities and use them as a potential for the general society.
And can I get your feedback on this Pact for Skills and what you've heard from the Commission, how that would fit, or how you would fit into that plan?
Yeah, I think I've heard about the initiative some years ago. I'm very much looking forward to see how the year of skills actually will develop, because we had, for example, before the year of youth, and we've seen some initiatives coming from there. But then the coordination in the skills discourse, I think it's very wide. So I'm looking forward to what's gonna happen. I think the few actions are the most relevant for educational perspective. It's a council recommendation on the VET, on the vocational education training, and the European Universities Initiative and upskilling the scientists, because we are also talking about the skills for research, and that's going to be interesting part, especially for applied science, how applied science universities and the legal frameworks in the countries can reflect on the research part, because in some countries, the University of Applied Science or the vocational education centers cannot offer, for example, research. The word research is not really a possible match with those applied science universities. So whether that's going to expand or not. And also, of course, within the Pact of Skills, we are the skills agenda. Actually, we are in European skills agenda. We are having a micro credentials approach. So that's the necessity how it's going to develop. There is a ministerial conference happening in Tirana next year. It's not only European Union but wider. So probably the next recommendation and the acknowledgement from the ministers and the direction will be set. We are working on it. Let's say right now.
Okay, great. Let's move on to Torsten Urban, Head of Education and Training at the Lüdenscheid Plastics Institute in Germany. And you've got the Step 2 lab program, I guess.
Exactly.
That's interesting thing. And you're working with machine manufacturers, raw material producers, very concrete stuff, tool and mold makers. As we were talking about with others on this panel, that it's higher education and it's also vocational education, extremely important to make all of this work in this green and digital transition, right?
Yes, that's right. Absolutely. So thank you very much for the invitation to talk here. We are doing both. We are doing education on the machine. That means for the machine operators. We are representing the plastics industry in Germany mainly. And behind us, there are more than 400 SMEs that always have a need of skilled workers. And they ask us as a center, where can they come from? So we are both. We have two roles. We are a cluster manager for those companies. And secondly, we are a vet center to make education possible. And in this combination, we launched a project, you already mentioned it, it's called Step to Lab, which means a step to labor. And this means our target group to get new skilled workers are in fact, just listen closely, are in fact young prisoners that are in jail at the moment. So what we are trying to do is to offer or to design an education systematic to make them fit for the industry. Some people say, well, a lot of prisons already offer the possibility of learning a job there. That's correct. But in the most cases, it happens inside the closed and protected area of the prison with a less connection to the industry. And our target is to get industry, companies searching for workers, and prisons together to get common systematic to educate them. For example, with this group, this project will last until next year. We have 1 year to go, one more year to go. And with our project group, which exists of in total 7 clusters of 6 different European countries, we visited a prison in the south of Spain. And it was very interesting. The young people, they learned how to weld, for example, little metal roses. It was very pretty and nice to see. And they got to know how to deal with welding metal, for example. But what they did not get to know is how to behave inside the company, how to behave socially, how to do the re-socialization process. And the companies, of course, themselves, they have a lot of prejudice against those young prisoners, and they don't want to employ them. So that's the difficulty we have, and we are searching for a systematic to solve this problem. And our advantage is that we have the companies behind us, and the others, the prisons, have the knowledge of how to integrate those young prisoners. And I was very surprised when talking to those young people. They are just normal people like you and me, young and stupid at one time, between 17 and 20 years of age. And for our convincement, they have to have a second chance to get back into the working ability. And this is our target in this project.
Dawson, that's brilliant. Brilliant. I see a number of panelists nodding. Anybody else have a story like that or in support of? I mean, I know, Aylin, you're trying to combine different skills in training people. Does something ring a bell there for you?
Absolutely. I've just written a fantastic project. I think this is where we have this ability to upskill young people into roles. And this, what Torsten spoke about there, this socialization, the understanding of how to be in a business is critical. And this is something that, sometimes it's how we introduce different, more experiential learning into these programs. We ran a big program called Entrecomp Edu with educators. We imagined it would be for teachers, secondary school teachers, and they wanted to learn how to build these experiences, how to build this kind of understanding of the world and how to be in it, how to meet stakeholders, to bring stakeholders into the classroom. And we had around 1,000 educators, but from organizations like SMEs who are looking to engage into sectors, from policymakers who are looking to explore how to build this entrepreneurial, experiential approach into their work in order to add value to sector-based learning. So it was a very interesting process.
Very good. Delphine, I know that you're working a lot in that vocational training. You were nodding as Torsten was talking. Anything to add to that?
Yes, and I agree with Ellen. It's very, very important.
Okay, very good. I got questions coming in now, and let's see. I also saw Carolina, you were nodding as well. Anything you wanted to add to that?
No, what I would like to say is that I believe that it is very important, the Pact of Skills, because it puts together different actors of the society, right? And this is because this problem is complex. And then I would say that clusters play a fundamental role, because if we need to put together these actors, we can be this neutral actor that help the communication. And I would just mention a very specific example of how we can be the voice for small and medium companies specifically. We had a project where we had to interview the small and medium companies to understand what are your challenges. And they were saying, you know, we don't have all the resources for recruiting, and we have to compete with the large companies that are already established. All the juniors that are coming from the universities, they prefer to go to the large companies. That happens also that they start in the small and medium companies, and after 3 years, when they get the seniority level, they go to the large companies. And this is the specific skills that they are missing. So what happened is that we started to sit in the board of the vocational education, because this is a great solution on how to shorten the training process from juniors to seniors. So we can see a great solution in that sense, a collaboration with the vocational centers in Sweden.
Okay, I've got more questions to pose to you, all of you, but I'd like to get to the viewer questions first, and then we can go back to those. This from Alexandre Yurchak. There are so many programs in reskilling, upskilling SMEs for twin transition. What would you recommend as a starting point for Ukraine in manufacturing? In fact, we don't have well-managed large programs in the area at the state or industries levels. And it's a huge challenge for our Ukrainian cluster alliance. It looks like they're starting from scratch. Any suggestions there from the start? And also, you know, Daniela, if you want to jump in, or Katerina or Vito, also feel free. Who would like to take that one for Ukraine?
Perhaps I can just say that I know that there's a lot happening from, I've got some noise behind me, sorry, building work, always the time. There's a lot happening with EIT manufacturing and EIT raw materials in this field. And I'm assuming that, Alexandra, you may already be connected, but if you're not, then that could be a great starting point. And I know they run a lot of European programs for upskilling, reskilling, and also then sort of, you know, supporting those collaborations to build. EIT is one of our key partners in the Entrecomp community, because they really see the value of entrepreneurial learning across their programs to underpin that sector-based knowledge. And I've also got lots of contacts in the Ministry of Education there, but perhaps that's not quite what you're looking for, Alexandra.
Okay, any other, Danielle, I see you turned on your camera. Do you want to add something to that for Ukraine?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Of course, the idea is that when we tackle skills needs and this type of topics for Ukraine, the idea is to open up as much as possible. I would like to point out that the EU Pact for Skills has opened as a consequence to the war to the Ukrainian entities so they can participate. Also, I would like to touch a bit on the SME angle. So the initiative is very much encouraging, welcoming the participation of SMEs, and there's also a large number of umbrella organizations participating. So maybe the first step in this sense is to raise awareness, because SMEs sometimes are most difficult to reach with this type of information, to raise awareness as much as possible of the opportunity.
Okay, very good. Torsten, you had something to add there.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's interesting, because no long time ago I talked to the automotive cluster manager of Ukraine about this topic. It was another fair by the side. So I talked to her, and she said it is mandatory, and this is through all the sectors of industry, it is mandatory to really understand of the Ukrainian, to really understand the needs of the Ukrainian SMEs, and how can we do that? The best thing is, of course, at the moment, it's difficult to go there and to hold any sessions in presence there, of course. But we have still this, meanwhile, well-developed possibility of online meetings. And she said, in her opinion, it is most important to make some kind of work groups, to make an exchange of what those Ukrainian SMEs really need of education and how deep should it go. Because the thing is, it is not difficult to find education institutions that are able to offer some kind of technical education, for example, but it is difficult to find out the correct one. And therefore, it's necessary to understand what the companies really need. And these needs, they might be a little bit different from Western Europe SMEs. And this is the thing she said could be the first step to make those regular meetings with those SMEs to get to know what they really need. So this would be my recommendation on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep your questions coming in. You can put them in Q&A, or you can raise your hand. I see some more coming in there on the chat side. That's fine too. Jakub, here's a question. If you could listen up for this, and all of you actually, but I want to get from Jakub first. This is Lisbeth from Belgium, representing UCLL, University College. And we are planning to set up a postgraduate training program, data science, AIML, in healthcare and pharma, for training both students and reskilling, upskilling employees in pharma companies. I'm wondering what the opportunities are to do this in the larger framework of the EU Pact for Skills. I know, yeah, we got to hear from the Commission as well, but what do you think, Jakub, first of all?
Yeah, indeed, that depends on the forest that, for example, Pact of Skills offers for the interested colleges to network with. And of course, on the other hand, there is a quite extensive number of events that are possibly networking opportunities within Eurasia, Eurasia reality within the higher education bubble. Let's say as well, we are limited to bubbles here, but indeed. So if anybody would be looking for a similar collaboration, the engagement in Eurasia, for example, the community of skills, that might be interesting, although it's a bit policy focused. But I would seek for the opportunities either within the Pact of Skills, or maybe Daniela can add something in here.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Maybe there is any hub, right?
Definitely, yeah. Daniela, you probably have something to add there, I guess, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would just like to add that indeed the Pact for Skills already has an ongoing skills partnership in the health sector, but there is also another one very specific maybe for the question that we're having now, that is in the process of being set up. So maybe I would encourage Lisbeth to get in touch directly with DG Grow for more information specifically on these two partnerships, because there may be room in there for collaboration.
Yeah, by the way, to everybody, all those slides that you saw in the presentations, you can go back to later on. We'll make them available for you to look at. It's a lot of good information. Here's another one from Senad Hromic. What are currently the most needed upskilling, reskilling programs for SMEs in the EU internal market? Be specific if possible. What are the needs? Can we talk about the needs? Delphine, peut-être? What needs do you see out there?
I think it depends of the specific market of each country, but for France, for manufacturing companies, main skills are for sure engineering and material or industry design, and after for technician and operators, it's I spoke previously in machining, welding, all this type of electronic, also additive manufacturing for sure. It's very important also to train in additive manufacturing because it's a new process, and there are not not enough kind of education and training on additive manufacturing, for example, but it's very important for manufacturing companies to be able to employ kind of workers, yes, machining, welding, additive manufacturing, electronic, and also automation, because it's mainly the most important today to be competitive, that companies have to automate all the processes, so also automation and maintenance.
Yeah, and yeah, Torsten, you raised your hand. I want to ask you too, is, you know, you talk about the plastics industry, and obviously in the green transition, that's going to be a big transition, right? About reducing the use of plastics because we're drowning in it, better use,
Exactly.
and also making sure it's recyclable, right? And that those are new skills to learn, right?
Exactly. We have more than one problem in the plastic industry. The first one is that it's a consumable industry for natural resources like crude oil, for example. And the next thing is, of course, the possibility of recycling. And these are all items that are not taught enough at this point of time. Wow. So asking me what is the most important need for upskilling, for my opinion, is understanding the technical processes and understanding the material and finding, for example, possibilities of substitution for plastic materials. Yeah. This sounds funny for me as a representative of the plastic industry, but this will be the future. I'm convinced about that. And we have the problem in Germany, for example, that a lot of young people are going to work inside the factory, easy money, quick money, not thinking about too much of tomorrow. But processes are becoming more and more complicated. Techniques are becoming more and more complicated. So my recommendation is to help those young people to get a real professional insight into technical processes, to help themselves for their own future, and to help the companies to be fit for the future with a digital and green transition. We're talking about electromobility and so on and so on and so on.
Carolina, you're raising your hand there.
Yes, just to complement, because I think that Torsten has given more the green perspective, and we just finished a project in December last year, so we have some fresh information about the digital transformation that we have identified is 3 main levels. The first level is specialized skills, when you are actually creating or producing products or services, and in the ICT sector. Then we have software, e-commerce, cloud-based, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity a lot, and data management. But we also have identified that companies need more generic skills for people that are working in other range of occupations, but need to have some digital skills in the daily work. And that's, for example, the use of software or access to online information, communicate in social networks. That's how you do marketing for EU e-commerce. But one that is kind of very important, I think, it's the strategic perspective. So educations like, should I implement artificial intelligence in my company? Do I need to do that right now? So leadership and more strategic innovation, that was also very important for us in the educations that we created.
Right, great, gauging what the needs are. Yes, let's move on to Jakub, please, too.
Thank you very much, Chris. And Carolina, I just wanted to also compliment the bucket with the ICT digitalization and the cybersecurity in particular. I think it was around 200,000, the number I think that I've learned recently when it comes to the skill shortage here. But also to complement this digital and green transition, I think there is an interesting aspect towards it, because there is a feeling that, okay, like skills for digital and green is one part for the society to learn and to cope with that, but it will not happen if we will not also have a, let's say, overarching comprehensive culture, and that's something called democratic culture. At least that's how it was defined by the Council of Europe. And I think there is interesting set of skills that also Council of Europe is having in its own documents and project. It's called competences, for a reference framework for competences for democratic culture. And I think the overarching framework for achieving the green and digital transition is also coping up with the society, with the values, with the attitudes, with the skills and the knowledge of understanding. It's being break down on the different matrices, so you can refer to that. I'm going to paste the link of the reference framework in the chat, but I think it's really interesting how these programs will evolve to not just to teach the skills on cybersecurity, but also how does it really affect the society around, how it's links, because without the broader collaboration, as we understood before, we might not achieve the goals of, you know, few hundred millions people across the continent integrated with each other. So
yeah,
to
absolutely.
complement that.
We had to let Vito Borelli go. He had another commitment, but Caterina, are you available there? I see you're still connected, if that's possible to talk to you. Because I'd like to switch over as well, you know, regarding Erasmus. Do you can you say anything about lifelong learning? Because that is something that needs to be how do you say, coordinated between universities, vocational education centers, clusters. What about lifelong learning? Yeah, you don't just finish your education with high school or university. It goes on, right? How does Erasmus play a role in that? Erasmus Plus.
Well, I can't say if Erasmus Plus plays a role. Well, obviously it does, but my program is a bit different. But okay. Of course, I mean, all those programs are there for lifelong learning, for people to further learn. And as I said, our typical customer is not a student, is somebody who already had his first job. Yeah. And now decided that actually maybe this is not for me, I want to do something else. But we also have people who actually had their profession, they finished their work at public service, they happily went to retirement, but they actually found out that they still want to do something, and they are our new entrepreneurs. They go on exchange. So we have people, I'm not saying that's the biggest group, but we have people in 60s who come and go on exchange because they want to do something else and still be active. So indeed, the programs are there for lifelong learning and accommodating people and helping them to further be active.
That's great to know, because I think a lot of people would think, oh, you know, they think of Auberge Espagnole, it's a great film, but Erasmus is not just for very young people. It's for all kinds of ages, right? And that's really important too. And all kinds of, it's not just university either. Yes, Ellen, you're raising your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Caterina said. One of the projects that has emerged from the Entrepreneur community is actually Entrepobble. And this is entrepreneurial skills to promote transition and more entrepreneurial approaches in the public sector. So really that audience for Erasmus Plus, which funds that project, is very broad. And this is also an example because actually the drivers behind that project come from public sector, but SMEs and business support organizations, because they see the value of supporting administrative change on, you know, more entrepreneurial, more facilitative approaches within public sector to sort of share that. And it's all about upskilling and reskilling as well. So that's a very interesting project, and clearly not addressing young people, very much lifelong learning.
What about the clusters themselves? How are you training and upskilling the people within your clusters? Would anybody like to talk about that?
I can maybe jump in. Part of one of our projects, actually, in one of our projects, it was very important to help the cluster team that was working and communicating with the company to help the company to identify the skills need. And for that, you actually need to have some training. So we use a specific tool that was developed by one of our clusters together with the region. That was focused on how to talk to the company to build, not to build together, but to understand the business goals that they wanted to have for the next 5 years, but also to help them to go through the digital transformation strategy for the company in the next 5 years. And with that, we needed to guide them to identify the skills that they already have to reach or to achieve those goals, and through that, to identify the skills gap that they needed.
What kind of skills
are you, process.
What kind of skills are you talking about specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's leadership. It's how to help the companies in their business model. It's more strategic, human resources. So it's
Okay.
This one was a very specific tool about how to identify the skills gap for digital transformation. So if you will ask me, it will be on that specific. But we also need to get to have more skills on how to help companies to find the skills that are needed in the market. For example, how to collaborate with the different innovation actors like universities. How do we manage these collaborations to actually help companies to satisfy their needs? How we identify the needs of the companies. So it's very specific knowledge that cluster managers and the cluster team needs to develop. And I think that specific projects help to do that, because you don't have a specific education for clusters. You need to do the work to learn and be in constant contact with the companies.
Absolutely. I see Ellen and Torsten both raising your hand. Ellen first, I guess. This sounds like something that's right up your alley, isn't it?
I was nodding in agreement, but I'll leave Torsten because I actually forgot to put my hand down.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Let's go to Torsten. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. This is interesting about lifelong learning. If I compare those things that I learned at university with the things I am doing now, there are light years between them. So me as a cluster manager in our institution, I have a cluster for medical technology. And I thought in the first times when I started my work after my study, I thought it was just about bringing companies together and talk to them and do some conversation. No, it is absolutely mandatory to get in touch with the pure technical. So I had to learn a lot of medicine technical. Now I'm talked about this Step to Lab project with the prisons. I really had to learn a lot of prison systems that I never learned before. So this is what I understand of lifelong learning, always learning something new. You never thought 2 years ago that it would be necessary to learn this and to have the possibility to do this and the willingness to do this. This is for me the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we have, let's see, somebody from Norway. In Norway, this is on Heidi Paulsen. In Norway, 99% of all businesses are SME with less than 100 employees, and 90% of them have less than 5 employees. I think one of the essential competences are that due to the green and digital transformation, all businesses will need knowledge of the platformization and unbundling of firms, sharing in networks critical needed skills, investing common goods that reduce industry barriers and reduce risk in going ahead with common strategies. That's a good encapsulation. Very good that you cover this now, Carolina. So chapeau to Carolina. Anyone else would like to talk about that? I mean, we're talking SMEs and they all need help to fill that skills gap, don't they? Anybody else? Well said. So it wasn't really a question, it was a statement. I think we're good at that point. If there's anything any of the speakers would like to add at this point before we go to the finance opportunities, funding opportunities. Yes, Carolina, please.
Yeah, just the last thing. I think that we have been talking about how we should support upskill and reskill adults. But I do think that when it comes to digital transformation, we need to do another step. I think that we need to start working with kids already in the primary school. So digitalization is, we are going to live in a new world. And I think not only kids, because of course we need more technical people in the future, but also we need to highlight how we can work, how we can include more women in all these new processes. Because right now what I'm seeing is that it's mainly men who are creating the new technical world where we are going to live, and they are going to be the leaders of this world that we are creating. So we need as women to jump in to also follow and lead and create this new world for opportunities for women as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jakub, please. You got your hand up.
Thank you very much. I would also mention the aspect, like if any of the participants of you would be looking for the collaboration opportunities with the higher education institutions, it's also necessary in this whole reality how teachers are being retrained and reskilled, because that's the another layer of the gap here, because we are expecting the future skills of the digital and green transition, but who is the one who is actually gonna teach that? So that's also a part of the opportunity for teachers to be included in the actions of clusters, SMEs, and so on, to get there, to know the skills, go back and retrain. So that's also a very important aspect. And finally, a bit of a banal here, but also sometimes it's getting hard to engage with the higher education institutions when it comes to shaping the programs and so on, and how actually SMEs are impacting the programs. But the most common and most often sentence coming from the institutions is actually that we are not seeking, we are not having, and we're looking actively for the partners, but we sometimes lacking them of knowing and the guidance where to go. So if you have a local opportunity where to go, how to link with the program board, how to set up the future of maybe the university, the institution that is surrounding you, then please engage, because both sides, I think, need this mutual cooperation benefit. Sounds a bit banal, but that's a final message.
All right, it's good to see all in the engagement in the chat as well. Really, really great points made. Katarina, briefly, please.
Very briefly, I can't more agree with what was said about women and girls. And there we need to tap that potential clearly. And there is another program, yet another program, which is called Esteem, which really helps there, including girls and women in technical education, in IT skills, because we see that until the age of 12 and 13, the interest is the same as the boys, and then it fades away. So this is really to motivate them and pursue further this dream. I'll put in chat the link.
Super, great. Aileen, quickly, please.
Yeah, just to say that on one thing, I think it's really important to get women through the management programs and through to the leadership programs. There are mentoring programs happening on that. Strada, EIT Women, EIT Manufacturing doing some excellent work there, for example. And also just to perhaps add to what Jakub said, I think that the opportunity to collaborate with different partners, new partners that are outside your existing networks, or that you could bring into your clusters. If you're interested to connect with people who have an interest in sectors and this entrepreneurial skills area that we're talking about, I've put a post in there to Entrecomp, the framework for this competence area. Please reach out to me. I'll add my details into the chat, and we can look to connect you and put out a call to connect you with people, organizations that are involved in relevant sectors across our network. Really keen. And Easteen, love it. It's a great program. We're involved in the Spanish edition. Really, really good program.
Okay. Great, Aileen. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of the panelists and all of you for sending in your questions. We're not done yet. We've got funding opportunities for Nina, please.
Many thanks to all of you, to all the panelists and speakers. It was great listening to you and all the different initiatives that you have. If any of you in the audience is also interested in upcoming opportunities, you can look at the following calls. There's one for assessing and strengthening the complementarity between new technologies and human skills. So a project should deepen the understanding of the potential and impact of new technologies, such as AI and robotics, to substitute or complement human skills and in performing job tasks, and to, of course, complement and enhance human skills when you develop and deploy the technologies. This is an upcoming call for the 4th of October under Horizon Research and Innovation Action. You have the topic ID in the screen and the link in the chat. So if you're interested in that, please have a look. And similarly, also on the 4th of October, there's a call that opens that looks more on the macro effects of labor market policies, to understand them, to understand the general equilibrium, including displacement and substitution effects, to improve skills strategy and skill development, and during periods of economic downturn, and to improve policy design to increase the labor market participation and employment in the context of high unemployment and high number of job vacancies. Also, Horizon Research and Innovation Action with the topic ID in the screen and the link in the chat. For SMEs, this might also be an interesting opportunity, the Skills in Education Guarantee Pilot, which addresses individuals, students, and learners to support them, but also to support the provision of employee training. This is also something that we talked about that offer European enterprises and to enhance the access to finance. As I said, for SMEs, but also small mid-caps, small public enterprises, and if you're eligible, also natural persons. This is a program under the Invest EU, and you can have a look at it. It's an ongoing program, so please have a look at the link in case you're interested in that. There are also many opportunities, as you know, from our Euro clusters that are addressed to SMEs. Across different industrial ecosystems and either for innovation projects, but you also have some training opportunities that are currently published. So please have a look at that. Depending on your industry, one Eurocluster might offer an interesting training program for you, for the SMEs. As you see in the screen, it reaches from architecture, from engineering, AI, mobility, biomass, life science, creative and cultural industries, also energy intensive industries, aeronautics, furniture. So a lot of areas are covered. Please have a look at the current open calls from the Euro clusters. And of course, last but not least, let me repeat the call to join the Pact for Skills, as mentioned by Daniela today. So the Pact for Skills is a good opportunity. It offers, as we heard, the networking hub, knowledge hub, guidance hub, with, I think, very interesting exchange opportunities also for the clusters. Thanks.
Great, Nina, thank you so much. And thank you to all of you to watching. And please do register for the next cluster talks and for the next, and also for the cluster collaboration platform. EU Clusters Talk is a bi-weekly event for the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, the ECCP. So please do tune in the next time. My name is Chris Burns. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.